The Life of a Researcher series is meant to capture the life revolving around a research career, prominently involving the vision, struggles, and highlights of a researcher. This platform will guide young researchers to stepping into the unknown and uncertainties of the academia.
Today, for our first session of The Life of a Researcher, we have Professor G. Ambika, Chair of Physics Department, Coordinator Academic Programs of IISER Tirupati, with more than 30 years of research career and being in vibrant roles like a researcher, faculty, mentor, administrator. We are so happy to have you here.
Hello, ma'am. We recently attended your felicitation program at IISER Tirupati, coordinated by our physics department. Everybody mentioned how they consider you as a mentor. Your administration skills have been the backbone of rise of not just one but two IISERs. We as your students fell into love of nonlinear world through your teachings. But beyond all of this, we wanted to know how it started. What motivated you in the first place?
Yeah, from very early days, as I was finishing my school, I really wanted to do something very good with my life, which is worthwhile and that will be rewarding also. So instead of just living my life, I wanted to do something which is intellectually satisfying and so that people will remember me later also. So this vision of my life, I used to share with my brother in those days. And then when I started studying science, I was attracted by physics, mainly because of its precise mathematical and analytical power to explain the phenomena of nature. And my brother, V.P. Nair, who is at present professor at the City University of New York, and myself studied physics together, and mostly outside class hours. And he was also very keen that I should start doing research in physics. Some of my teachers who taught me in my BSc and MSc, and they in fact insisted that I should have a career which is as a research career in physics. So then I also felt that research in physics is the right way to realize this vision of my life.
So what were the initial struggles that you had? Any cherishable moments that you auditioned?
Even with such a clear vision and passion for research, it was not an easy way for me. There were a lot of hurdles that I had to pass. For example, for me, research was a totally different life altogether. I am not a typical example for a researcher, I would say at the very outset. Soon after my MSc, I had to join for a lecturer position in a college. 2 years later, I joined for MPhil. At that time, I did a project in theoretical physics with Professor K.S. Vishwanathan that introduced me to the excitement of doing research. Soon after, I joined for PhD, but at that time as a part-time researcher because I could not afford to take leave from my college job. By that time, I was married, had 2 small children. So it was not easy with family, full-time teaching job, but still I took it up as a challenge and completed my PhD in 4.5 years.
So what are the major takeaways of your research at that time?
As I said, I had to do part-time research while working full-time in a college. Teaching in a college in those days were not that easy because it is 16 hours of teaching per week. Moreover, I had to travel from Maharaja's College where I was working to Cochin University where I have joined for research, around 12 kilometers every day. I knew I wanted to work in theoretical physics, but I was not sure which area to join in theoretical physics. So finally, I joined with a particle physicist, Professor Babu Joseph, in Cochin University, right now called CUSAT, because he was the only faculty doing research in theoretical physics at that time, other than my own husband, Nandakumar. But I got interested in nonlinear dynamics after reading a few papers. Then, in a seminar, I heard one lecture on nonlinear maps and chaos by Professor N. Kumar from IISc Bangalore, which really opened a new direction for me. So I got interested in nonlinear dynamics and immediately started my research in nonlinear maps, their routes to chaos, etc. But in those days, getting good journals and books in this area especially was very difficult. Research in this area in this country was its initial stages with very few groups working in nonlinear dynamics. So I used to write to authors directly requesting for reprints, which will take 10 days to reach them. They will send the papers to us by 20 days. So it takes at least 1 month to get one paper to read. Moreover, textbooks were also not available in Cochin. So in this context, I remember with great gratitude that Professor N. Mukunda of IISc Bangalore helped me to visit their center CTS so that I can use the library in IISc for research work, research references, etc. I also got great help from Professor M. Lakshmanan of Bharathidasan University. I used to visit their center frequently. But I could afford to be away from family only for 2-3 days at a stretch. So these 3 days, I will spend 20 hours per day going to their library, taking out all the bound volumes. In those days, everything you have to get Xeroxed. Then I will come back after 3 days with a bag full of Xerox papers, etc. But the happiest moments were when I get to know that my work is accepted for publication in a journal. So that repays all these extra efforts that I had to put in.
So what was your major takeaways during your research career?
See, as I mentioned, I completed my PhD by doing part-time work in 4.5 years, could publish some 3 papers within that time. This gave me great confidence to pursue my research. There was no immediate advancement in my career, but I could apply and get some research projects from UGC and DST. I had offers for postdoc, but I could not accept them because I could not be away from my family. However, I did a postdoctoral work in Cochin University itself as a CSIR RA. Of course, having PhD projected me differently in academic circles. I started to get invitations for giving lectures, attending conferences, etc. And I became part of a few committees. These were all very interesting and intellectually satisfying.
So it is really inspiring to hear all this. As a girl student, myself and all other girls who are pursuing science is very much inspired and looks up to you. So as you are an accomplished woman researcher. As a woman in STEM, how is the experience with family, colleagues and the society?
Okay, needless to say, it was really non-trivial. Having to manage family, research and teaching and to do the best in all of them. So in those days, there was not much encouragement or support from the system by giving you leave for research or giving you financial support, etc. Even occasionally questions were asked like, why do you strain so much yourself? Why do you make your life so problematic by doing all these things together, etc. I had support from my husband and my sons. Very rarely I got support from senior colleagues because the research culture was not there in colleges at that time. Even when I was applying for positions, I had to hear opinions like, being a lady faculty, you want to be in a place where your husband is working. So why do you need a regular position? You can satisfy yourself with a project position or so. This is even after doing better than my male colleagues. So I soon realized that my own motivation and determination only can take me forward. From society, there was not much resistance, maybe because I didn't have any social interactions much at that time. But later my lady colleagues got inspired by my experiences and they started research career and they used to look up to me as their role models.
So any relevant stories you wish to share with us?
During my research experiences, yes. I can share one interesting instance because while I was doing this part-time research in CUSAT, I used to take both my sons who were in school at that time to the computer lab and make them sleep there while I worked overnight on the computer. So there was only one PC in CUSAT at that time and it was very difficult to get computer time during daytime. Moreover, during daytime I am working in the college also. So that is why I had to complete my PhD work doing work overnight. At that time, I was mainly looking for routes to chaos, where this nonlinear science you must have studied undergoes bifurcations to 2-cycle, 4-cycle, etc. before they reach aperiodicity and chaos. So one night, my elder son woke up in the middle of the night and seeing me on the computer asked me, "Mom, are you getting a 2-cycle?" So he was only in school at that time. So this shows how much involvement they had in my research and other things. They never complained for all these things and they were very happy to be part of my research efforts.
So over your research career, how has the scenario changed in this?
See, the scenario is totally changed now in every aspect. Now, there are many supportive schemes for women in STEM. For example, DST has a project proposal called the Vice Kiran. Under that, there are several schemes. So, there is a women scientist scheme which will help women to pursue their research even after a break. So, as chair of one of these DST committees, I myself was involved in awarding fellowship to many deserving lady scientists. So, I feel happy that they don't have to go through all these difficulties and time-consuming efforts as me. That is one thing. The second thing is there are several awareness programs and forums that look into problems of women working in science, and they take many proactive steps. Also, in all selection committees now, there will be a lady member, and there are mechanisms in place to sort out issues if any is there. Most importantly, this is applicable to every researcher. Accessibility to research papers, books, etc. now has become very easy, fast and effortless. You don't have to wait for 1 month to get a reprint paper or anything. In fact, in a lighter way, I would say any lady researcher now can put her baby to sleep while the computer work is doing her research in her laptop. Similarly, she can have discussions with a distant collaborator in US while her meal is being cooked in the pressure cooker. So these are some of the advantages that they have now. So therefore, I expect to see more and more women to come forward to work in forefront areas of research, as research life for women is much more comfortable and rewarding now.
So academia is not a comfortable place always. Doing research is hard. What kept you going throughout the life?
Okay, I said I was working in a new area in theoretical physics called nonlinear dynamics. There were several open problems in that because the field itself was just developing. So it was very interesting to try out all of them, and the results I got were very stimulating and intellectually satisfying. So I realized soon that this is the right direction for me, as it did compensate for all my extra efforts. So after PhD, I did postdoc, then completed 3-4 research projects. I had students to work with me for PhD, etc. Luckily, by that time, I got an offer to shift to IISER Pune in 2006, when the institute has just started. So by that time, both my sons have finished their education and already joined for a job or a higher studies. So in IISER Pune, I got good computational facility, library facility, and students to work for projects and PhD. So this kept me going all these years. Recently, I shifted to IISER Tirupati, where also the scenario is the same. Very good research ambience, research culture, and environment.
So your interest must have changed over time, right? How did the questions you had in your early stage of career change now?
See, when we start working or doing research in one area, we start asking a few relevant questions. Okay. So our ultimate aim is to understand the system, the processes underlying its behavior, etc. Some of our questions get solved while doing the research, but some of our ideas may prove long also when you do a detailed work. So, out of our initial ideas, we get some new ideas. Sometimes you have to take a really abrupt turn pursuing a few other questions, etc. This is in general what happens in research. So this has happened to me also. So I keep on going from one exciting area to another, and then some new approaches that I developed which can explain new phenomena, etc. So this is really an exciting area, very interesting, intellectually stimulating.
You have a really large network of collaborators. How did you build it around?
See, in my case, again, it is not a typical example. Collaborations mostly started accidentally during conferences. So I have now a visiting associateship of IUCA, Pune, for almost more than 25 years now. So I met Professor Ajit Kembavi from IUCA in a seminar, and he was instrumental in making me apply for associateship of IUCA as soon as I finished my PhD. And during my visit to IUCA, I could get good computer facility, library facility, and I could start a large number of collaborations with Professor N.G. Mishra, Dr. Hari Krishnan, Dr. Ringu Jacob, etc. I specifically remember one instance in IUCA in a one-day conference. I was presenting my work on time series analysis of star data. So Professor Takoiti, a famous senior astrophysicist from Tohoku University, Japan, was in the audience. So he was so impressed with my work that on the spot, immediately he offered me a visit to his center. So he arranged everything for me to visit his center. So this actually developed into a collaboration with Professor Takoiti and Professor Tanaka from Kyoto University. Similarly, in one of the conferences, I met Professor Jürgen Kurz from University of Potsdam, Berlin, and our interactions developed into a long collaboration, which was later funded by DST DAT project. Also, from interactions in conferences, I developed collaboration with Professor Ari Amutkar of PRL, Professor G. Rangarajan of IISc, Professor Vijayalakshmi Ravindranath of IISc, and together with three of them, I did a very interesting work on Alzheimer's disease, which is a very well-cited work now. I also continue my collaboration with my earlier PhD students who are doing postdoc now. So presently, we have a very good network of researchers in nonlinear dynamics and complex systems in the country, and we hold annual conferences using which we can all be linked in a very productive way.
So as you mentioned, you are associated with both IISER Pune as well as IISER Tirupati. So you are the most apt person to answer this question. That is, how is the research environment in IISER different from other institutions?
So this research environment in IISERs are very enriching and motivating compared to other universities or colleges. See, IISERs were created for that, right? For sponsoring research in forefront areas. Moreover, teaching is integrated with research in the IISER system, which means we always get very enthusiastic undergraduate students to work in short projects. And the teaching work in IISER is much less compared to the work in colleges or universities. So we get enough time for research. Also, facilities like computational facility, library facility are all up to date. There is provision to hire postdocs, work for get projects sanctioned, etc. in specific areas.
So you are most popular among students and other teachers for your passion for teaching. So where does this passion comes from?
Initially, I liked teaching because it kept me closely associated with topics in physics which are very close to my heart, right? Rather than doing any other job. It is always a pleasure to explain to students the concepts in physics the way I have understood them. So this also gives me a lot of interest in doing that. So for example, when we study whatever topics in physics and we convey to others the same topics while we are teaching. So that improves our understanding also. So teaching is an activity that puts the teacher and the students in a feedback loop, which is beneficial for both. And I always try to evolve by methods of teaching so that my interest in physics is kept alive over the years. Moreover, in the IISER system, we get to teach courses which are related to our area of research, which makes teaching much more inspiring and satisfying both for the teacher and for the students.
And most of our students are content with how effortlessly you teach even the most difficult topics. So we are curious to know, what teaching style do you prefer?
See, my teaching style depends on the students who are taking my course, which means this is going to change from batch to batch. Every time I decide on how to explain topics, what are the type of problems to use, etc. based on that particular batch of students, their level of understanding and enthusiasm. So my style keeps on changing and evolving every time, and I think of new ways of expressing things, preparing slides, etc. as I move on, so that I myself am not bored by teaching the same topic. So this keeps the interest alive.
So you just mentioned like it evolved throughout. So how did you forge your style over these years?
As I said, it depends on the students that I am teaching. So I will go on changing my style of teaching and my presentations, how to do it, how to choose problems, etc. depending on the students, and then evolve new ways of doing it.
We know that both research and teaching are intellectually demanding. So how do you manage to find a balance between both?
We cannot consider research and teaching as two separate or disconnected things, especially in science. For me, they are two parts of a single endeavor. So, but based on the needs and the requirement, I try to balance time for both. But this is totally individualistic, depends on each person. Because balancing between teaching and research is an art that has to be perfected by each person. But I can say it is possible to balance both very effectively and with proper planning.
And what about administration and management? You seem irreplaceable in that role. How do you make it look so easy? Where does the passion come from?
See, when I am given an administrative position that involves some management also, I just start doing it. Once I start, I realize that I can add to it in many ways. I can introduce my ideas there. I can try to perfect it so that it is most effective and powerful for the institute or the committee where I am working with. So then slowly it becomes a passion for me, because adding new ideas, making it perfect, etc. And then it's just like any other part of my profession. This also becomes a passion which I really enjoy doing. In the IISER system, and with director like Professor Ganesh, who is very supporting and encouraging, I could really enjoy all I did in the academics, administration and management in both IISERs.
We know that IISERs give substantial importance in nurturing young minds through mentorship. So what is your perspective that is the role of a mentor-mentee relationship in a researcher's career?
So in the career of a researcher, the mentor-mentee relationship actually plays a major role. Because the pattern still again changes from mentor to mentee depending upon the area of research, etc. It will be one way in an experimental physics lab, it will be a different for a theoretical person, etc. But mentees get trained from the mentor, not only in research, but all aspects of academics like presentation style, lecturing style, looking for a problem, approaching a problem, and how to write reports on the work done, how to write proposal for grants, etc. So these are all various aspects of training required, which the mentor will pick up from the mentee will pick up from the mentor. So it is important to keep this interaction effective, open and continuous.
So how is it between you and your mentor or mentors?
I had good interactions with my PhD supervisor, and I had benefited greatly from interactions with my collaborators who were all like mentors for me.
So you being in the role of a mentor, like what qualities have you been implementing?
See, I always keep an open mind, not too much of criticizing, at the same time not compromising. So I always keep discussion sessions, which includes all my research students, project students, summer students, etc. on the same forum on a weekly basis, mostly every Sunday afternoon. So I have followed this routine regularly for so many years now. And during these discussions, I give them freedom to comment on each other's work also. Even project students can comment on the work of a PhD student, etc. So this has generally helped all of them because they learn from each other's mistakes and correct ways of doing things also. So this is what I have been following, and I hope most of my students would have liked it from whatever they tell me later. Okay.
Yeah. So according to you, how can a mentee take the best out of a mentorship?
See, mentees have to keep asking questions relevant to their research area, both to the mentor and to themselves. At the same time, presenting their ideas without hesitation to the mentor. So this is a learning experience for both of them. So this will make the mentor also think beyond limits and come up with some workable ideas. So that means repeated and continuous interactions is what will benefit the mentee most.
When asked about any message for the next generation, you mentioned that time management was the mantra. When did you realize the importance of time in life? What is your way of managing it?
Yeah, I realized the importance of time when I was really pressed for time. Okay, so this from very early in my life, I learned that time is the most precious thing in life. And one cannot purchase or get back time with any amount of money once it is gone. So when you have to take care of a multi-member family, to do 16 hours of teaching, do research and guide PhD students, prepare talks for conferences, it is very important that you try to manage your time. So at that time itself, I realized the simple fact that everybody, including the most successful scientist or Nobel laureate, has only 24 hours in a day. So the success depends on how you manage your time to achieve your goals. So now I regularly tell this to all my students. You also must have heard it. And also, one should learn how to minimize time for any work. So I practice this as a principle of least time, which means if you can do a work in 10 minutes, don't take 20 minutes to do it. So the key is to optimize your time for every work so that you have time left for other works. And when you have multiple things to do, you have to prioritize based on the importance of each work, and I try to allocate time for each one of them. Sometimes you will have to give more time for teaching, sometimes more time for research, sometimes more for family. So it is not proportional or linear. But you can plan all your work in a week, for a week or a month or on a daily basis. So to tell you personally, I keep track of all the tasks that I have to do by keeping a list of things and keeping some notes. And at the end of the day, I go back to the list and check. Sometimes there will be some carryovers. Every day I may not finish all things in the list, but still most of it I will be able to cover, and then I carry over the remaining to the next day. Like that I keep track of it. So I think in short, the secret is to practice managing time for your requirements. Managing alone is not enough. You should learn how to master your time. That is the key to succeed in your career.
So, to all the budding researchers, would you like to shed some light on your perspective on, as researchers, what do we owe to the society?
The area of my research is one which may not have immediate results to society, like research in medicine or so. Thus, immediate applications to society may not be evident. Especially research in theoretical physics will take time to think about some applications which will add to the well-being of the society or address problems in society. But wherever possible, it is important to direct your research to take care of immediate needs of society like energy, healthcare, climate, etc. So, for example, our IGEM students, they are actually similarly working on problems that address the problems in society based on research in science. In my research also, to tell you an example, I have shown how we can arrive at some measures from time series analysis of ECG data, which will tell you how to differentiate between a normal heart and a pathological heart. So, if tried with more clinical data, it can be perfected as a software or an app, which cardiologists can easily use for detecting and even prediction of heart problems. So, like that, in course of time, it is easily possible to divert it, scale it up, make it proper such that it can have applications to society. But as a researcher, I am conscious that I owe to the society a proper training of generations of researchers. We add to institution building, establishing sustainable systems in education and research. We also should be part of the evolving needs in education and research, so that eventually this will lead to a well-maintained and balanced research culture in the country.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you for your invaluable inputs and taking us through your life. So,
It was a great experience.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you all. I also enjoyed it. Okay, bye.